Welcome, everyone. So nice to see you all. I am thrilled to be here today with Cherry Lu Sai, editor of Adroit Journal. Welcome, Cherry. Great to see you.
Hey, thank you for having me, Becky. It's such a pleasure.
So let's jump right in. And why don't you tell us about the history of Adroit Journal and when you got involved?
Sure. So Adroit Journal, this is actually its 16th year, and it was sorry, my toddler is just creating havoc. Okay.
Oh, we see the camera shaking a little
Yeah,
bit.
she's
It's
I have
authentic.
it on her high chair and she's just yeah. So
Yeah.
apologies to your viewers and listeners for for some real life fun
Right,
right now.
right. Working mom. I
Yeah,
get it.
so as I was saying, it's Adroit's 60th of that would be nice. 16th year, and it was started by Peter LaBerge.
Hmm.
So what is interesting about Adroit is that Peter had started the magazine first as a high schooler. He was a sophomore in high school, and I think that's so incredible because he's still hands-on, super hands-on, even until now, you know?
Hmm.
So he's been the editor-in-chief from the beginning, and he's had a lot of, growing pains and evolution from the beginning, because in the beginning it was just print, the first 7 issues. And after that, he decided, so first, sorry, I'm jumping around because I'm trying to look at her. First, it was just a high school project, and the reason that he had started it was after I spoke with him. He told me that he was trying to submit, he was a poet, he still is. He was a poet, and as a young poet, he kept submitting to all these big magazines, and he said
Hmm.
it didn't seem like anyone was taking him seriously because he was a high school student. So
Wow.
he decided that the founding mission would be to have a magazine, a serious literary magazine that would focus on emerging and young talent, you
Hmm.
know? So he was literally creating a home for someone like him.
Hmm.
So that's been until now the ongoing mission of Adroit. Of course, it's evolved so much since then. It's become one of the premier lit mags, I think the I checked last time, the I think the acceptance rate is something like less than 2%. And judging from our slush pile, it's really a lot. The general submissions, I think we had um I don't even know, but it was a lot. It was more than, maybe, I'm guessing here, like 1,500 submissions or something like that. And uh we only publish 8 fiction stories, 4 nonfiction stories, and I'm just talking about that from the prose side, right?
Hmm.
And for those just joining us, I am the new senior prose editor at Adroit. I've only had my position actually the last since December, because the my predecessor had to abruptly step down, and they asked me as the prose editor, one of the prose editors. There's 5 of us, or no, 6, sorry, uh, to to um to be her successor. I'm sorry, she's jumping around. I don't know if you've ever had an interview like this.
It's great. It's very, it's like watching a movie.
I apologize again.
Just like zoom in, zoom
It's
out.
Yeah, that's her little foot. So,
It's fine. Don't apologize.
Yeah, yeah.
oh, okay. I feel embarrassed. My face is so red. Okay.
I did. Hello.
Okay. Now she says hello. Okay. So, where was I? Yeah, and now Adroit, first it was just him, right? And now there's a lot of people on staff. We are a
Mhm.
volunteer-run organization, so um it it does get at first it was complicated for Peter until he managed hiring the a core team, to start running different parts of the magazine because it's a lot, like, and I recommend for any writer actually to try to learn the ecosystem as much, which is why, Becky, you are doing God's work by having this interview sessions and then also having your Substack
Mm,
because it is a complicated ecosystem
yeah.
as I'm sure you have found out. And like I read one of your blog posts a few weeks ago about this writer who did not give permission to the
Mm,
magazine to publish her work, and yet they did. So
right.
there's a lot of there's so many magazines, and you don't know who is good and who
Yeah.
is reputable, so having this as a resource is really such a great thing for a lot of writers. So I commend you on that, and I hope you continue,
Yeah.
even though I'm sure from your end, like logistically, it's super hard, so
Thank
I just
you.
want to, make sure that I say that.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Um,
It's funny,
yeah.
I actually met Peter. So I was teaching in Boston for a young adult writing program.
Oh, okay.
Peter came to talk to the kids.
Ah,
And I was looking, and I think this must have been in 2010 or
mm,
thereabouts. And it's really incredible that now the magazine has published so many acclaimed writers and won all kinds of awards. I don't know if you can speak to this, but do you have a sense of how the magazine became so successful and how he really kind of like launched it out there?
yeah, again, I just have to say that Peter is such a visionary, right? Because from the get-go, he again he wanted that founding mission to be the main core of what he was doing, which is really to have young voices published,
Hmm.
talented young, promising, talented young voices um, published alongside writers who are already recognized, So I think that combination of trying to look for um, young, promising talent and then also publishing people who are already set in the publishing world, that they're recognized, basically put Adroit in the map. Sorry, I'm trying to think and also
Yeah, no, no.
juggle her. She's
You're doing
not
great.
normally like
You're
this,
doing
but
great.
whenever she sees me on my computer, she
Yeah.
suddenly starts becoming more active.
It's a social
Okay.
activity. Yeah, yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, yeah. So th my
Sure,
life.
sure.
So,
She's part of
but
the magazine.
yeah.
So does that mean the magazine solicits work, or is it at this point all from the general submissions queue?
A lot of it is from the general submissions, but
Mm.
we do solicit work from especially established writers.
Oh, you're
There are
like,
established writers that sometimes come to us also.
mm,
So that has happened
yeah.
again because I guess of Adroit's prestige right now. So
Mhm.
sometimes we don't know who's going to be in the queue,
Right.
and I will say even so I'm a writer as well, and just reading the slush pile, it's so humbling.
Yeah.
Okay, you're already saying hi. Reading the slush pile is so humbling because there are so many talented writers.
Yeah.
And some of them, I'm not saying all, right, but some of them, it is already pitch perfect, publishable, like just
Mhm.
ready to go. And then there are others, yes, it still needs a little bit of, TLC. And so
Mhm.
if we think that it doesn't need too much shaping sometimes, but we fell in love with the voice as a team, then maybe we'll, write to the author and say, hey, can you tweak this a little bit? And,
Mm-hmm.
but more rare because again, we just receive so many entries that are, I get just ready to go,
Right.
and
Right.
so to me, that's humbling because when I used to, before I became involved with Adroit. So I've been in Adroit now, I would say about 2.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
I started as a reader and then somehow they asked me to become a prose editor. So I said, okay, great. What does that entail? Um, then I was a prose editor for a year. And then when my predecessor left, they asked me to hop on to become the senior prose editor. And just seeing what is in the slush pile, it's really humbling. And then it
Mm-hmm.
made me realize that sometimes it's taste because you could have done everything well, right? You could have written the best story you possibly could, but then relative to other
Yeah.
stories and what, the editors are looking for that specific issue or
Mm-hmm.
what they're doing, you can, I mean, you can't help it, right? That relative to the other submissions in the issue that yours would get,
Mm-hmm.
maybe that second the second stage, like, I'm sorry, we love this, but we can't place
Right.
it in the issue. We'd love to hear more from you.
Mm-hmm.
You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So that in my own practice, it made me feel less precious with my work,
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to encourage everyone to really have your own discipline and as long as you know that you're doing everything to the best of your ability,
Mm-hmm.
if you get that rejection, don't take it personally because
Absolutely.
sometimes you don't know what's happening behind the
Mm-hmm.
scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you could have written something incredible, right? But then um you just don't know what else is on that pile.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So those pieces that you say these are right for the magazine, they're ready to go. Can you tell us more specifically about what those pieces are like?
Yeah, so right now we're actually judging for the Anthony Visnaso scholars. And that this normally we don't charge for, which is rare actually, because in the lit mag ecosystem, it's more normal, I think, to charge people, especially if they're an established magazine, just because it is very expensive to run a journal.
Mm-hmm.
Submittable fee, like all of that. And it doesn't matter if it's a volunteer run our organization, there are costs. So Peter still has the no cost, no fee submission, the general submissions, and then which is just $3. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm switching that. The no fee. But then when we have the contests, so we have two contests in the year. So right now we're judging for the Anthony Business scholarship, and I think that was $3 for the entry fee. We select six scholars and then finalists, and then we commend other people, other writers. So right now, I mean, again, from hundreds and hundreds of packets, we have 50, and a lot of them are so strong.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what we're looking for is voice,
Right.
right? And we hear that all the time, and sometimes it feels undefinable, but it's really that quality where you are slowly hypnotized
Mm-hmm.
from the beginning, and you don't know what that beginning is sometimes, but then you just start reading from one sentence to the other, and then you start having that feeling. It's almost like falling in love or
Mm-hmm.
that love at first sight,
Mm-hmm.
where you just see this person, or in this case, you start reading a story and then you just start falling for the story. Yeah, and yes, Joanne, definitely. It's like this hypnosis that
Mhm.
starts happening and you start knowing that or you begin to know that oh, this is a voice that I'm going to follow, you know? And sometimes what happens is that the ending doesn't work, you
Yeah.
know? And we have rejected stories that have not the right ending or that it went on too long, you know, things like that. So
Mhm.
again, because relative to the pile, there were others that were just ready to go.
Right.
So the stories that have, you know, slight issues, we would say, "Oh, thank you for submitting. We'd love to hear back from you."
Mhm. Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, mostly I would say it's that hypnotic effect of really great stories where you just start following that voice, you
Mhm.
know? It's like
Mhm.
the Pied Piper. You're like you listen to that sound and then you just go even though you fall off the cliff, right?
Mhm.
So that's number one. And then sometimes it's also technical virtuosity
Mhm.
where they're doing something technical that you haven't seen before, you know,
Mhm.
because that's also part of the voice. Um, okay, you're saying hi already. And so okay, you're saying hi already. Sorry, guys. Um, yeah, so yeah, for me, number one is voice, and then anything else goes. So the other thing I will say is that because there are six editors,
Mhm.
so we're not all going to see eye to eye,
Right.
and sometimes there is a piece that one editor falls for more and then if they see across our worksheet that oh there's five no's or and then one yes right and if they
Mhm.
feel really strongly about it then they'll say during our editorial meeting, hey guys, I really love this story because XYZ,
Mhm.
right? So there are editors who fight for the stories because they fell in love with the voice and the story so much. Again, it's I don't want to say rare, but it's not often the case where you'll have the same opinions across the board because again, we're all different people. Reading is very subjective, right? Even if there are awards out there. I'm sure you've been in a situation where you've seen something getting so much praise and then you read it and you say, what are people thinking? And then you read the Reddit posts and then you agree with someone, disagree with.
Right, right.
So it's the same thing in the
Mhm.
editorial room where when we have the meeting where some people will resonate with something more than others.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Can we unpack this idea of voice? Because I think it's really interesting, and it's also something that we do hear a lot from editors.
Mhm.
So what exactly do you mean when you talk about voice? I don't if you can sort of tease it out a little bit. And how does a writer know if their story has a voice?
Okay. So for me personally, when I say voice, I'm thinking point of view.
Mm,
So that's for me personally, right?
mhm,
Other people may have something different, but for me, it's point of view. So I've taught. I used to be an adjunct in the CUNY system, so I was teaching primarily at Brooklyn College. I taught a lot of playwriting and creative
mhm,
writing classes. So I'm originally a playwright, and then I
mhm,
moved to prose writing. So I also feel behind actually sometimes with a lot of readings and a lot of different things. So my approach sometimes to prose is a little bit different because it's qualified by my playwriting experience where it's literally the voice like you so when I used to be more active as a playwright and we had classes in playwriting, you didn't just read a play, you listened to it,
mhm,
right? So a lot of the times it was the point of view. So what is the story? What is the narration? How is it being told? You know, why should I listen to this person right now? You know? So that is immediacy for me that okay, this writer, because now I'm reading obviously more than listening, although I do listen to audiobooks, but that's different. In the slush pile, I'm reading and thinking, okay, it's the way how they're putting words together,
Mm.
how I notice things like how much breath is in there. Again, from my playwriting acting background, where how much word is how much breath is in this piece, where are the punctuations landing, how am I, is it a maximalist piece, is it a minimalist piece? So is it supported, or is the writer just being flashy, look what I can do, and things like that. So again, for me, it's about what is the point of view that this writer is trying to relay to me right now, and in that point of view, what is the message? So for me, that is voice,
Mhm.
because there are a lot of stories that putter around, but then it doesn't feel unique, and you
Yeah.
can tell that it's just a like a cookie cutter um story, that there's nothing, that there's no again, this may sound a little bit um nebulous, but soul,
Mm.
what is the soul of the piece? And
Mhm.
you see a soul, right? Like I think about a Frankenstein's monster, where that has soul, like it's rough, right? And I'm gonna circle back now to when I was teaching creative writing. I mean, I still teach it, but
Mm.
when I had students who had voice, right? But it's the craft level is not there yet, but they have voice.
Right.
So I encourage them. I say, listen, I'm gonna make up a name here. Marcus, just you have this story. You have a voice here, but you need to take your craft now into another level,
Mm.
your grammar needs a little bit of work, or maybe you're mixing your um nouns and pronouns and
Mhm.
things like so little things like that. So it's sort of the basics of language, right? To in order to get your point across, your story, your soul into the piece, so that
Mm.
it is married into your reader's eyes, and then they see your soul. Like think of it as a
Yeah.
performance.
Mhm.
When we listen to music, and it's transcendent, because it is touching
Mhm.
on nerves we didn't even know existed,
Right.
like right to the heart,
Mhm.
or before you know it, you have tears in your eyes. So
Yeah.
you want your reader to have that visceral experience
Mhm.
somehow, and again, I'm borrowing from my training as a playwright, and in the performance space, where you want that reader not just touched in the intellectual sphere, but sort of in their body, that
Mhm.
that they don't even realize it, that they're breathing faster, or they're
Mhm.
for the romance readers there, for example. I mean, what makes them want
Yeah.
to keep reading a romance
Right.
novel? It's because they're feeling things,
Yeah.
so it's something like that. So for me,
Mhm.
do I feel it in my body? Like
Mm.
whatever it is, that it's firing up signals in my brain, but
Right.
is it also hitting me in the chest?
Mhm.
Is it making me, grasp my computer and be like, oh my gosh, what is happening?
Mhm.
And things like that. So
This is so interesting. So, do you think that because these are sort of like ineffable qualities like voice and
yeah.
soul and getting your reader to fall in love with the story, do you think this is something that can be actively cultivated, or do you think this is sort of like you either got it or you don't, or like it comes spontaneously for one story, but it's not something that can be crafted?
So I've read on and I've heard people be on two sides of the story, right? And what I will say is it's like I'll answer this with a story and an analogy. So there was a time when because I was stupid
Mhm.
and thought that I was in New Mexico and then I had a cousin who was just turning 18 and so I'm Chinese and Filipino. My cousin is half Chinese and I'm sorry, half Filipino and half Cambodian. So they were following the Filipino tradition of having the debut at 18. They wanted a full-on spectacle of dance and whatever. So I was one of the cousins who was going to do a dance also. What did I do? I decided that I was going to show off and do a flying spinning back kick because I used to do martial arts. But I hadn't done it in a while, like years at this point. And then I we were practicing on concrete. I executed the move, but then instead of landing on my knee, like bending it, I straightened my knee, which is a classic mistake. Guess what? There was a sound, and I said, "Oh no, that is a sound I remember from when I had a similar injury when I was 22 and I had to do surgery." So I tore another ligament. So and then I was depressed because I was saying, "Oh no, I can't be, because I like moving."
Mhm.
And then I went back to New York. I didn't get to perform in my cousin's debut. I got back to New York. I was supposed to I was still in my playwriting program that time. Was supposed to rehearse, not showing up to some of the rehearsals because it's hard for me to get around through the subway system and all that.
Mhm.
Then I went to a play in the Lincoln Center, and then I had to use the elevator. When I used the elevator, there was one older lady behind me, and she was fighting me to get into the elevator. And she actually pushed me aside. And I had my crutches. And it made me think about how um, you can be healthy, but then something can happen, in my case, like some stupid decision, right?
Mhm.
Where suddenly you are disabled,
Mhm.
right? And that disability for that moment in time for because right after that because I also didn't do physical therapy right away because um my I didn't have my insurance and decided to wing it, right? With bad idea. If you have any injury, try to get physical therapy. I developed a frozen shoulder, and if anyone has had a frozen shoulder, that can take 1 year, and it's very painful to heal, right? So I was super depressed because I am used to movement. And I would say that that time made me even more like, so I'm already like a brooding person, I'm like that person who goes off in the darkness and just thinks about everything. Oh, like this was 10 times me, right?
Mhm.
Um, and I tell the story because how you transform this idea of craft, right? It is because you have an experience that changes your point of view,
Mhm.
and nobody can take that from you. That becomes your point of view. That becomes the window in which you see everything. And sometimes you have such feelings that you want to put on paper or to put on something, right? That that becomes your soul language, right? And then you try to find words that can frame that so
Mhm.
that you um put that in your in your page,
Mhm.
in this case because we're talking about writing, so I'm sorry, it's a long-winded way of saying I don't believe that that you can not learn it, because
Mhm.
it's not technically something that you learn. It's because as a human being, we experience things every day. And sometimes it can be minute, it can be a daily thing, but then later, right, there is an experience that changes our personhood so much
Mhm.
that we become transformed in that moment, and then suddenly you have a point of view,
Mhm.
a unique point of view that no one else has but you,
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
know? And then from that, your soul starts to want to reach out to other people to understand what, because sometimes we don't even understand what we're going through. And I say that as a person who has um had an experience like a life-changing experience. So for example, when my one of my best friends died during the pandemic, and when my father died not too long after, like that changed me in ways that I am still processing.
Mhm.
You know, so where I sit as a writer, where I was more on the intellectual
Yeah.
sphere, where I wanted to show off, right? Like, look
Mhm.
what I can do. Suddenly, that pared down into I want to be as plain as possible so that
Mhm.
I can let you know what this experience means to me. So my writing has changed,
Yeah.
you know, and so I think everyone in this room and everyone listening,
Mhm.
right? It may not be right now. It may be like later, you know, we don't know that. I don't know that, right? It's just that you have to examine your individual experience and say, what is it about me that is unique to me that I have to explore?
Mhm.
And in that exploration, because we use writing to me as a tool, right? Which is why it's exciting, because it is a way for you to examine the human condition, right? So, what is it about the human condition that is unique to your point of view that you want to fling across to other people?
Mhm.
You know, so that you are relaying with your heart, with your mind, with the complete unity of your being to that to your reader, right?
Mhm.
Because reading is an individual experience
Right.
also,
Right.
right? So that is voice to me,
That
and
is
that is
a
you can train
wonderful,
that.
wonderful answer and so interesting. So, I mean, it's also kind of a blessing, I think, if a person can get out from under an experience like that and use it to harness their creative powers, because so many, I mean, like just an example, like you're tearing your ligament or some other kind of sudden health crisis, it can just bury you. I mean, it can just destroy you, destroy your morale. And to be able to recognize that is like, oh, this is actually giving me my fuel. Maybe not right away, obviously,
Right,
like while you're in the thick of it, but to actually realize this is the foundation for my worldview. And this
right,
is actually like a power, this is like a fire that I can draw from to find my creative voice. And it's not what I would have wanted. I would have wanted to perform in my cousin's, debut, but this is the reality, and this is kind of adding texture to my life and
right.
my vision and my voice.
You're right. And you know, just as an example, right? When I told that story, did you lean in? Did you say, "Oh,
Mhm.
what is this? This is something I haven't heard before," you know?
Right,
So
right.
so something similar like that. Like I
Mhm.
can see that as a short story,
Right.
maybe, you know. And and again, I just believe that we are all in this together as human beings. And I keep talking about this, you know, this idea of human being, just because we're in a time right now, you know, where it everything just seems to suck, you know. I have to keep exploring, well, you know, what makes us human in the best way possible,
Mhm.
right? And so and you know, with of course the advent of AI right now,
Yeah.
what makes us human,
Mhm.
right? Because in AI, it is what is fed to them, you
Mhm.
know, but we feed ourselves, you
Right.
know. I mean, our insides, that is what is human.
Mhm.
and also our connections with not just ourselves, but with other people, with nature, with just everything.
Hmm. Do you think you can tell the difference in a submission between a voice that is crafted versus a voice that is sort of thickened and speaking from the kind of lived experience that you've described?
I want to say yes, but
Mm.
sometimes you can't tell,
Yeah.
because what if the writer is experimenting with, a robotic voice because
Hmm.
that is their character,
Right.
the narrator, so you have to read something for the story's own merit, without preconceived notion.
Hmm.
Yeah. And unfortunately, for example, in our last issue, there was a writer who we believe used AI. We had a program that was used to see if this was AI generated. It was from a student. And it said 99% AI generated,
Uh,
because AI can copy a style or a type of voice,
sure.
especially now. And it's scary because we don't even, we're just in the beginning of this
Yeah.
revolution, evolution. So I don't know what to say about that. Like
Yeah.
I'm not a technical person, but I'm also seeing a little bit of the writing on the wall, and lately you have engineers who are working in the AI safety sphere of their respective companies quitting because they're afraid of what is happening within their companies. And so I don't want to be scared, but it's a little bit scary to think about. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, we have a question here. As a playwright, are you more attuned to dialogue? How do you think about evaluating dialogue in a prose piece?
I would say I notice it, but it doesn't mean that that is the only thing I notice in a piece because I've thought about this. Even though I was trained first primarily as a playwright, I mean I love language, right? I got into writing and the arts because of language, I just remember as a kid when, oh my gosh, she's having fun kicking kicking the computers. um where I had books, those classic books like, I don't know, Heidi or Robinson Crusoe or whatever. It transported me to another time and place, so I grew up in the Philippines. I'd never seen snow. I'd never seen, things that were described in books. And so I credit books and reading to um my imagination right now.
Yeah.
Gosh. And sorry, I'm also breastfeeding. So she's hiding
You're
my
really doing it all. Wow.
I apologize again.
If anyone's
This
wondering why
this
submissions take
life,
so long to
know.
get a response.
So this is the theater of my life at the moment.
Yeah, well, we're honored to be part of it.
Yeah, I don't know if I answered that question.
It was about
Yeah,
dialogue, but that's
yeah.
okay. Yeah. Um, a question. So with this is, I think this is really helpful in sort of like giving a sense of your perspective and your kind of worldview and how it influences what you read. Would you say that is also reflective of the other editors? Do they have different tastes? Do they have different
Oh yeah.
values?
Yeah, I would say everyone has different tastes, like we have one prose editor, she's French, so it's interesting to see what her point of view is as well because of taste, so not that her taste and my taste differ because it's actually very we overlap, and so that made me think about different ways in which, for example, international literature impacts uh, our reading taste, you know.
Mhm.
Um, the others, they're male, and I also think about, is there a difference between gendered readings, you know?
Mhm.
So I know I definitely uh feel attuned to writing that is body conscious, you know? So that's not true for all the other
Interesting.
readers, they can be more intellectual.
Hmm.
I would say maybe, like, for example, David Foster Wallace. I mean,
Yeah.
I get it, right? Like, I get it, right? I can read it, I can appreciate it, but that doesn't touch me, right?
Mhm.
So there are readers, because I also see what the other readers, we have a reading team, for each of the prose editors. I can see sometimes that, oh, they like this type of reading, and I can see that, right? So for example, I've said yes on things that I don't love, but I can see why these
Mhm.
other editors love something, you
Mhm.
know.
Mhm.
And I think that's why it's valuable to have a quorum of readers also, because sometimes they'll see something that I may not necessarily see because
Mhm.
of, um again, we have different reading journeys, different reading styles that we like, et cetera, et cetera. And so I find myself learning from that as well,
Mhm.
and I don't know, it's such an adventure reading, because
Yeah.
you think that, well, not that I think I know everything, but you think you're already comfortable with a certain style or a certain type of storytelling narrative, and then you discover more things.
Mhm.
And I think that's why it's such a great thing to have a slush pile, because you just don't know who you're gonna
Mhm.
read. And
Mhm.
sometimes you may discover a voice that, again, you just don't necessarily think that that's something you would have liked, but then you end up loving it, you know?
Mhm. Mhm. Would you say that reading, I know this is something that all editors say, but it's not always true. Would you say that reading back issues of the magazine would give a good sense of what you like, the aesthetic, what you generally like to publish, or does it sort of change issue to issue? Is there a rotating team of editors?
Yeah, I think it can, and a lot of the times it's what you get in the slush pile.
Mm,
It's the editor's taste, because sometimes you might even see that what was maybe 10 issues ago, that's not something that they're looking at
mm,
right now. But if you I would say maybe the last 3, 4 issues, right? Because you'll see that, oh, they're liking things like this, but maybe they haven't seen something like what I'm writing right now, and try my luck, you know?
right. Can you give us some insight into things that you see a lot of in submissions that are maybe not right for the magazine, like certain
Oh,
style
sure.
or certain subject matter?
So sometimes we get genre
Mm,
submissions, so clearly genre, and clearly they haven't read the magazine.
mhm,
Um, they're written well. It's just not, we're not the right um magazine for it.
mhm,
I mean, I know, for example, there was one in particular, just from the last, before our January issue came out. I wrote the editorial letter for that one. And I read, so I will say I don't normally read the entire issue all at once, but for this one, because I was writing the entire, I was doing the editorial letter, I did read the entire issue, and I thought about a theme across the board, and so um it's interesting where you have you have oh, I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? I just lost my train of thought. This happens to me sometimes. It's being a mom. I'm sorry.
I totally understand. What was the question? The question was things that are you see a lot
Oh,
of
yes,
that are
yes.
not right for the magazine.
So genre, and there was one that I really liked. I enjoyed reading it, but
Mm,
we had to say no because it's not the type of thing that we
mm.
publish, you know. And then there was one point last year where I saw a lot of octopus stories,
It's so funny.
you know, and it made me think, is it because there were several novels or something that had octopus as characters? So I don't know if there's a connection. So like Remarkably Bright Creatures, I think that's the one
Mm,
popular one, that very, very commercial
mm,
story. So I don't know if there's a connection, but that happened, you know. And like I actually I think I brought it up. I said, yeah, I've read a number of octopus stories, and then because it was the same thing, I couldn't separate the good ones from the bad ones, you know, because they were all writing about an octopus. So I'm sorry for listeners who are writing about octopus, but so that happened, right? And that was just from that slush pile.
mm.
So that you can't control.
Right.
Um,
But would you reject an octopus story out of hand or
no, no. I mean, you would
more?
still read it, but again, because you're judging from, or at least I know from my side, I'm judging from my initial reactions, right? So sometimes it's hard to not compare that to another story that
Right,
I just read, you
right.
know. So it's not a no right away, but then like what is this story offering that is different from something else that was very similar to it?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because again, it's at a point where we're receiving so many incredible stories that sometimes, again, not having the right ending or having too much of the same point of view in the middle,
Mm,
can that can generate a no.
right.
Or um, you know, uh, a no, but we're asking you to submit again.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So will you work with writers on revision?
Not all the time,
Yeah.
because again, this is a voluntary role, right? And because there's just so many moving parts that even I asked this of my predecessor last year when she was still the senior prose editor, like because I asked that because I there were stories that I really wanted, and I asked her, would there ever be a time when we could work on a story with a writer? And she said generally no,
Mm,
because we just don't have the time and the energy.
sure.
Because again, we're a volunteer run organization. We don't get paid for this. We're just doing this out of love for the craft, right? And wanting to be a good literary citizen. So again, this is what contributed to my point of view of not being precious with my own writing, that I know that I have to put my best foot forward when I submit something,
Yeah.
and just keep trying to make it as impeccable as I can, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Is there
Uh,
anything that you're actively seeking more of in submissions?
um, I can't say like yes, absolutely, but it's more like we want interesting points of view, and I know that sounds very general and nebulous, but um, okay, in the January issue, because that's fresh in my mind, right? There were two stories that stood out to me, and it was about language, actually. So it was about two foreign language learners. One was learning English, so it was a story set in the Soviet Union, and it was about learning English. And I mean, I recommend. It's called Mother Tongue, by Yevgenia Dame, or Dame. I forgot to ask how to pronounce her last name.
Mhm.
Um, and it was a hilarious story and very unique, point of view about learning language, you
Mm,
know. And then the second story that stood out to me from that issue that we read, um, I am not going to remember the name because it has this weird English, like, grammatical structure, but there's something about with a fox, okay? And that is an non-native Japanese speakers learning Japanese in Japan,
Mm,
and also talking about death and the way how we process language and death, and that was super interesting to me.
mm,
Both were about language, and I did not see that coming for the issue, right? It's just that those were what came. Um, One was so Yevgenia was solicited because Michael, one of our editors, Michael Costaris, he had read another work of hers from another journal and said,
mm,
"Hey, Evgenia, I really loved your work. Do you have any stories for us?" So it doesn't mean she did, but she did at that point.
mhm,
So she submitted this one, and then the other one right from the slush pile.
Interesting.
And so I loved both pieces because of how they processed. So it wasn't English language, right? It was non-English language and the thought process around that. And it was fantastic.
Mm.
So I highly recommend if you want to read the January issue.
Mhm. Do you have any advice for writers who are listening to this and they're thinking, this sounds great. This is my journal. I'm a working mom too. I know what it's like to be, I want to be submitting to this magazine. I have a strong voice or whatever it is. Somebody's listening to this. They're connecting. This is all resonating. They're excited. Do you have any or pieces of advice for them before they finally submit their work to the magazine? Just like one final pass, what to look for?
Yeah, I just also from my experience, because I also submit. I try not as regularly because I was working on my novel, my second novel, and it's not easy because even when you think that have it, that you've done it, right? Sometimes you may need like another reader to just look at it, and at least that's the kind of a kind of writer I am. Sometimes I need another reader because I have blind spots because I've looked at this piece of writing so many
Yeah.
times that there are some things about it that I can't tell anymore.
Hmm.
I don't know if this is resonating with anyone, but um, so for example, in my there's a short story I worked on. Oh my gosh, I've been working on this short story for 5 years,
Mm.
and I was submitting it and then kept getting rejected. Um, and then finally I had, and I've gotten feedback from people, but it was still not there yet, right? Finally, and this is why I recommend everyone to try to be a reader for a magazine, because you start, sometimes you won't even feel it, but your sense of reading your own work with distance
Hmm.
grows. Okay, so that's my one advice that this is for the long term, so not necessarily short term. Try to see if you can read for a magazine, because that'll help you immensely.
Hmm.
Because I got my breakthrough with that particular story after there's a story that we published in, I think, issue 56. I no no 55, called Sueltame, and that was from the point of view of a younger person, and because the story I was writing was also from a point of view of a younger person, collective we, and that was my breakthrough. Like,
Hmm.
just reading and working on that um just got me to change so much of my story that now I had two other people read it and they said, "Oh my gosh, I love this so much." So I never got that reaction from that particular story before, so I was able to revise it. So now I'm waiting for other,
Hmm.
I submitted it. I'm waiting to see if that worked,
Hmm.
So read for a mag. try to have beta readers, readers that you trust,
Mhm.
obviously, who you know will not just say this is amazing, because you want to improve, right? Um, yeah, those are my two main advice
Mhm.
for
And we have
you.
a question here. Can you define slush pile as it relates to lit mags? 'Cause I think we use that term a lot, and some people
Oh,
don't.
right. So for those who are not aware, a slush pile or the slush pile that
Mhm.
everyone talks about, it is unsolicited submissions from the general public. So for example, there's a call, for example, Adroit has a call and says, we are now open for general submissions. And there's a date, you know, from March 1 to April 1. I'm being random.
Mhm.
And then you submit. So now your piece belongs to the slush pile. And one of the readers and editors will read it. And from there, usually there's a cycle, so it's not an automatic yes. It goes through, other readers, other channels, and then we have an editor meeting where we discuss all the stories. So usually at that point you have at least three, four, five readers looking at it
Mhm.
and voting on a story. Um, And sometimes maybe the particular, this is a true for Adroit anyway, if there's a story that, the editor sees that, oh, it's not really hitting the points that for them as a reader, not, it's not touching them in all the points that they have internally, that might be a reason for a rejection. And there's tiered rejection. So there's thank you, like usually form rejection, and then in the first and second tier, they're also form rejections, but we can um adapt it to if we want to add something else, like I really love this part of, whatever. And anytime you get a personalized rejection from an editor, just that is gold because normally it's a form rejection. So don't feel bad if that happens.
Mhm.
Just take a breath and
Mhm.
just start over.
Mhm.
Thank you for that
This has
question.
been great, Charlie. I just have just two more questions, and one is, how can someone get more involved with the magazine? I see there are openings for staff positions, and also are
Mhm.
you looking for volunteer readers?
Yeah, just regular reading of Adroit issues. We've worked so hard with each issue, and then sometimes we have call for readers, which I mean that's how I started. I saw there was a call, and then I decided to just try my luck, and usually what that entails is a piece of writing from you, why you want to be involved, and then someone will read it and get back to you whether you become a reader or not. And then we have people on staff who used to be just readers, like regular readers, not official readers, but just regular folks who like the magazine. They saw the call for positions, within the magazine, and then that's how they started, and now we're in the magazine, so um highly recommended. We're like I love the staff. We're all it's such a great team. That's all
Mhm.
I can
Yeah.
say. Yeah.
Yeah. This is great. So one final question. This is a question I ask all editors, but we can see you have a lot going on in your world, and this is a volunteer position. So what keeps you motivated? There must be some days certainly where you're like, I can't, I'm covered in milk. I can't even look at these submissions or whatever it is. What keeps you motivated? What keeps you inspired to do this editing work?
Yeah, so because I'm in my house a lot because
Mhm.
I'm looking after my toddler, I love working with people in the magazine and reading the work that comes through the slush pile or through solicited work because it makes me feel connected to the literary ecosystem that I'm still an active an active literary citizen, even
Yeah.
though I may not be going out there to reading because I'm in New York, right? And I used to go to events and all of that. But now I don't because I'm at home with her, right? And um it makes me feel like an adult.
Yeah.
At least for me, very personal.
Yeah. I get it. Well, thank you so much, Terry. This was really great. And thank you everyone for coming out today.
Thank you, Becky, and thank you, everyone. Again, amazing work.